listen to this podcast, or I'll gut you.
Welcome back, Horror Hounds, to Ghostman and Rivera's Horror Show podcast. Today we have John Adams and Toby Poser of the Adams family, filmmakers behind Hellbender, which has been a big hit on the festival circuit and has been a big hit on Shudder, and The Deeper You Dig. How are you both doing today?
We're
Fantastic.
Great, thanks.
And
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. It's really nice.
John Adams, you actually came to directing through the world of like fashion modeling, and you worked with Armani, Calvin Klein, and you did runways in Paris and New York, and you were on a reality show called The Rock and Roll Acid Test, and I'm guessing that's where you learned a lot. And Toby is from Pennsylvania and migrated to New York to do theater, and you did a 90s soap opera. So how did you two meet?
Awesome. We met at a rock and roll show. I saw Toby walk into the Irving Plaza, and I thought, that woman is everything. And I turned to the guy I was with and I was like, that woman is everything. And he said, I know her. Do you want me to introduce you? I was like, oh my God, no, I no, don't introduce me. And, but he did. And then luckily good things happened between Toby and I, and we're still cruising together, just having a million laughs.
So what was your journey like going from meeting and then getting married at the Wonder Wheel at Coney Island? How did that lead to going on the road when your girls were 6 and 11 to make movies?
So I got pregnant pretty fast.
Woohoo!
We got married. I mean, after, like within 2 years of knowing each other, we had a kid. And Lulu, who was just a wild thing and still is. And then 5 years later, Zelda came around. So when Lulu was about 10 and Zelda was about 5, we decided to move out to Los Angeles to just, well, John was doing rock and roll acid test out there. And we thought, this is a good time to just kind of try something new. My acting out there was just like kaput. I mean, it was nothing was happening. So we decided we would just start making our own movies. He's a great artist, and he on the set of Rock and Roll Acid Test, he liked being on the set and watching people use the camera. And I'd been on like TV and indie sets, and I loved it, and I like writing. So we just thought, well, shit, why do we wait for others to do what we can do? And we hit the road.
Yeah, I think also what was fun was, like you said, I was a model in the 90s, so it was really fun. I was very lucky to be successful. At the same time, Toby was on soap operas and doing theater and doing films. And so she was, having a great time. And then I think kind of there's never any such thing as bad luck, but kind of a little bit hard times kind of hit. I got cancer. I think Toby's got fired from her soap opera, and one of the reasons that she got pregnant was because I had been told I was never going to have kids because of chemo and radiation. And so when we found out we were pregnant, it was kind of miraculous. It was kind of like this beautiful moment, and it was just amazing, really. And so we both were kind of broke at the time. Not much was going on artistically or business-wise. And the reason we got married on the Wonder Wheel was because it was the only ring I could afford. and it was a big one. So I thought, you know what? This is a big, beautiful ring that costs, $2 to get on. And so that's where I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And then, yeah, like Toby said, we finally ended up in Los Angeles, and I think that's where everything turned, because we just found ourselves again artistically.
That's actually a pretty amazing and inspiring story. I was not aware of that. So I guess it must have been hard at the time to being in the position that you were, to imagine years from now when you were being told that you weren't going to have a kid and you had cancer you're still here. You're doing great work, and you have two wonderful kids who work with you. I mean, Zelda more than Lulu, obviously, but that's a pretty amazing story.
I think that's the reason I mention it, is because it was a gift to have cancer, because it made life so important every single minute. Like it, and you know, then I met this woman that already knew that, you know, and so together, that is why we make films as a family, because it's such a gift.
Wow.
You've both had cancer then and beat it then, huh?
Yeah,
Wow.
the deeper you dig, I was going through my own dance with cancer, but it was more quick than John's. Like surgery could handle mine. I had a reproductive cancer, so in a way that really informed a lot of the writing for The Deeper You Dig. Made it a super special, rich experience for me. I mean, it's not like the audience would know what I was going through, but I knew what I was going through, and it was this wonderful parallel. I say wonderful because, it existed, and I'm here. Between what I was losing as a mother and what Ivy in The Deeper You Dig has lost as a mother as well.
And that's what's so fun about horror, is that you get to explore really raw emotions in a super fun way. Like you get to have fun with pain, and you get to make pain funny, and you get to make pain glorious and artistic, and that is the beauty and why we love making horror so much, because you kind of get to laugh at the wild side of life.
Did you both grow up as horror fans? Because I know you've done a lot of work outside the horror genre, but you seem to be having a lot of success within the horror genre as of recently.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
We had made. Well, I'll just talk about the success part real fast. Yeah, we had made 4 dramas before we stepped into the horror realm. Excuse me, and yeah, just we were kind of just immediately embraced by the horror scene, and it was just kind of wonderful. We were excuse me, we were made to feel like we were family, and that we had found family, and it was fucking fun too,
Yeah, it's hard to make dramas when you have a budget of like $2,000, because a lot of drama, you're competing with, multi-million-dollar films, and people are used to much shinier, much more produced stuff. It kind of requires known actors. It kind of requires big production. It requires a lot of things that is what's so beautiful about the horror community, is they are very art sensitive, and they're very story sensitive, and like they're wonderful viewers of film, and they're super intelligent, and so we were allowed in because they found aspects of what we did, and they celebrated those, and they'll kick our ass for things they don't like, and that's really great too, because each movie that we're making, we're always trying to improve on where we got our ass kicked, on reviews, or mostly on audiences, because audiences are like, when we go to festivals and we talk to people, nobody pulls their punches. They'll say what they like, they say what they don't like, and that's what's fun about this whole experience, for sure. The answer to horror as a kid is, I was always quite scared of horror. Like I would see it on the black and white TV and be kind of terrified of it. And like, I did go to some movies. I generally was a wimp and closed my eyes or went to the bathroom. And ultimately, my soccer coach took me to see Phantasm, and I was both hooked and horrified. It blew my mind. It blew my soul.
Okay.
Yeah, in my horror experience, I was kind of like a mainstream horror lover. Like I loved going to horror movies, but I would have to say my education really kind of has just begun in many ways, which is kind of fun. Like last night we were watching the Russian film, I'm not going to say it wrong, VIY, spelled VIY. I mean, yeah. So I'm kind of on this war path to catch up with a lot of, horror. I love it. And in fact, our first film that we ever made together was meant to be a horror film. And at that time, we just weren't ready. So we kind of, Rumble Strips, our first film, sort of dissolved, the horror element dissolved into this family drama, because we started shooting it, we were having so much fun, and then John's character was supposed to come and kill the kids, and we're driving in the RV, and he was really quiet, and he's like, Tobe, he's like, I gotta tell you something, I just don't want to kill the kids. And I'm like, I don't want to kill the kids either. So fast forward about 10 years, 9 years, we were ready to start killing the kids.
Well, I can't imagine how challenging it was as a family to be on the road, teaching yourself the filmmaking process. So what would you think was the most challenging part of that time of your lives, and what was some of the crazy experiences you had?
Also a great question. I think both of us would have different answers. Mine's going to be, today my answer to that question would be, editing was very challenging because I didn't understand timing. I was learning how to edit on YouTube. It all was very, very foreign to me. And up until that point, I had been quite scared of computers anyway. So I was eating a lot of pills at that, like I was swallowing a lot of hard pills, learning how to edit, learning how to deal with the computer. I think that was the most challenging thing. The easiest and funnest thing was to film, to just shoot. And we shot so many terabytes of info on our first movie.
Yeah. And we could probably take out 15 minutes, of pauses and stuff out of our first film. Because we just were so in love with the experience, we couldn't let go at that time, we definitely have so many kind of crazy stories. We tend to, our lives and our art are so intertwined that sometimes we just do crazy things.
Yeah.
We're lucky that nobody got bitten by a poisonous snake when we were shooting the desert,
or eaten by an alligator.
Yeah. Or a python in the Everglades. It's just some things we look back and we're like, holy shit.
Oh my God.
All this shooting in the snow. One time we were shooting a short film up in Alaska. And we're like,
oh my God, yeah.
And there was a storm. We hiked to the top of this mountain with our costumes, and this storm rolls in, and it was just glacial, and Zelda was so bummed.
We got 2 feet of snow in 20 minutes, and we were I think about 5 miles up on a ridge. It was insane.
It was crazy, but that footage is incredible.
Oh yeah.
And with Hellbender too, we were hiking in the White Mountains, and a storm came in, and it was slick, and it was all rocky. But some of that footage is in the book sequences in Hellbender, and they're priceless.
I think that's one of the cool things about your movies is the way that you shoot on location. And yours are very low budget productions. And when I actually read the budgets for your film, I was kind of shocked because it doesn't seem like they were made that way. It's like a throwback to how movies used to be made when you used to go to on location and you put yourself in more dangerous situations, which I'm sure is a challenge. So I wanted to ask, you both collaborate, you and Zelda all collaborate on various aspects of the film production. And I know, Toby, you started off as an actress. Do you prefer being in front of or behind the camera, or is there a part of the creative process that you prefer to the others?
I've really fallen in love with writing. I mean, I still like being in front of the camera because that's what I come from, but that's an endlessly, educational thing. You're always learning and getting better and getting worse, and then better again after you were worse, so in front of the camera is just kind of a given. I do love it, but I love the writing process, and because of my experience just working with directors in theater or on television or indie films, I've also really grown to love directing. I've learned so much from the people who directed me, and that too is something I constantly need to improve. So I love the writing and I love the directing. I do. Okay. Probably the most.
What about you, John? What do you prefer?
Well, I love the cinematography part of it, and Zelda does too. If she was sitting here with us, she would say the same thing. Her and I communicate relentlessly about how we want to shoot things, and we on set are passing the camera between each other to get to be like, look at this, look at this, look at this. Cinematography is so fun. And I actually also, I'm not a big fan of acting. Like if I could get someone else to do my parts, I would rather that. But
he's so good.
But it's easier to.
He is.
It's easier to just tell myself what to do than to tell somebody else what to do. But I have learned that I love editing. I absolutely love editing. I find it really interesting that cinematographers shoot film and then hand it off to someone else to edit. That would be heartbreaking because it's such a fun and integral part of shooting.
Oh, definitely. I feel like you see the movie really come alive, and the editing is where you really turn it into something, because a good movie could potentially become a bad movie in the editing process. So I know that's a challenge. Zelda also operates the drone shots, doesn't she?
Yeah. So Zelda, we shot a movie called, Zelda and I did an experimental movie called The Hatred. And during that time, one of her big things about cinematography was, we gotta get more motion in our cinematography. We can't always set this on a tripod and shoot. I mean, part of the reason we did that was because there was only two of us, and a lot of the time both of us were in the shot, so there was no choice. But when we went to the Deeper You Dig and we went to Hellbender, Zelda really got involved with moving that camera. So she got us to buy a drone. She learned how to use it. And she did an exceptional job, I think, in Hellbender. And she also got us to buy something called a Ronin that is like a Steadicam. And she was integral in that too, like making sure that there was a lot of tracking shots and a lot of motion shots. And she's gotten really good at that stuff. And now we've bought another drone. We bought a better drone that actually shoots in higher resolution, and she learned that too. She runs the motion cinematography show. That's her deal. And she does, I think, just a really beautiful job with it.
Yeah, your camera shots and movements look very professional.
Oh, well, I will tell her that because it's important to her. And that is all her. If it's moving, Zelda's holding it.
Well, you've mentioned that you started with just a Canon SD camera and that you're completely self-taught. And you're mentioning that all you need to make a movie is a camera, tripod, and 2 mics.
Yeah.
So what would be some of the best advice you would give to a filmmaker starting out that way with no filmmaking experience?
That the less you have, the better your movie's going to be, because that means the less things that you have to learn and become good at. And we still only use 1 camera, 2 mics. And a tripod, or now actually we do have a Ronin and a drone, but it's like the simpler the better. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I have a movie that I'm going to shoot, but I need like a big. It's a big production, so I'm waiting for a producer to come in, or I need more money to pay for effects, or I want this really fancy car to be in our film." And it's kind of like, well, then rewrite it without the fancy car and without the production and without all that stuff, because it's so fun to make movies. So just make them within the bounds that you exist.
And the story's really, the anchor. So if you have a good story, all the bells and whistles mean nothing if your story's kind of nothing. So for us, it's always about the story. I recently did an interview and they said, well, what are you trying to say in your films? And this was women in horror. And so I know they were expecting me to say something really intelligent, but I had to be honest and say, for us, it always starts with the story. And once we know the story in and out, we figure out what it is we're trying to really say. But because stories are beautiful for us. And with all the ideas we have in the car together, eating meals together, going to soccer practice, we're just constantly slinging ideas. It's always about what is the story we want to tell. And I don't think you need a huge budget to tell a great story.
Another thing is that I think filmmakers should shoot things and let them have their own life. And so people will either like them or not like them. We've gotten beat up on movies. Actually, probably we learned the most from the movie that we got our ass kicked the most on. It was a movie called The Shoot. and we worked so hard on it, so hard, and it
And
got
spent the most money.
and spent the most money on it, and tried it's like, and we got our ass kicked on it, and it was kind of like, I remember there was a moment where I was like, okay, I think the best idea right now is to just start on another movie. Otherwise, we're done, because this is so painful. And we learned so much from that experience. And the next movie that we made, still to me, maybe the closest in my heart. And that was a movie called Knuckle Jack. But so shoot and then let it have its legs while you work on your next movie.
Okay. So what is your so you guys you come up with the stories together? Do you collaborate on the writing process too, or what is that like? And do you like take votes to see who has the best idea if all three of you are collaborating on a story? Because I'm sure you all go in different directions and have wildly different ideas at times.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we all contribute ideas. We rarely have a full script that we work with. Usually we'll have just like a loose scene, and then we just jump off from there. Usually once we start doing that scene, we realize, oh, that sucks, or that's not even what the scene is about. Until we kind of embody the scene, we don't really know what we should be doing. And we have the luxury of reshooting. Lots of times we don't get it right, and we can go back and reshoot it when we finally understand it, or how to shoot it.
Yep, that's true. And writing wise, though, Toby writes. None of us write. She writes. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
she writes, like, she's the brain of a scene, like, and she'll usually write a scene. Now, she doesn't say, hey, everybody's got to follow it. But if there's ever a question like, wait, what are we trying to do here? Toby knows the answer, and she usually wrote it down.
And sometimes I am a stickler about getting certain things, because John is great at he's so impulsive and he's got great ideas. But then and Zelda will know how to make it look good. Yeah. And then I come in and basically say, okay, but we have to understand why we can't just do something just because we want to do it. So I'm really interested. For me, it's paramount that I know why A goes to B goes to C all the way to Z. How, that intricate web that makes up a film, and how things circle back to each other, or you revisit something you dropped a hint at earlier. I'm really interested in all the little arcs. That's fun for me.
Well, to hear you talk about your filmmaking style, it sounds like guerrilla filmmaking, but it doesn't look like guerrilla filmmaking at all. So what do you think is the major factor that makes your films look so good on such a minimal budget and almost no crew?
Well, thank you for that high compliment.
Yes.
Time. We have time, and we don't have a schedule. If you think about The Deeper You Dig, it's one of the, Hollywood can't shoot a movie over a year. They can't shoot spring, summer, fall, and winter. We can. And we have all that time to keep looking at footage. Like, we're working on a movie right now called Where the Devil Roams that we started shooting in October. And it's July, and we're still just finishing up on it. And we're allowed, like, one of the beautiful things about the way we can work is that we can look at a scene, and if it's missing something, we just can go reshoot it. And sometimes you can't. Like, obviously, if we shot a scene in the winter on a hill, that's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when we do shoot those scenes in the winter on a hill, we go home and we make sure we have it like that night.
We also almost predominantly use natural light.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have fancy lights and stuff. Sometimes we'll use a construction light if we really need it. But natural light is beautiful, and we like being outside. So that's why we like to shoot like your backdrop, Mike, in the wood.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, Tobe. I think one of the reasons some of our cinematography looks good is because we're just shooting beautiful things. Like, we're lucky that we can park our tripod and shoot in the White Mountains up in New Hampshire, or out in the desert of Big Bend in Texas, it looks beautiful. You can't not shoot it nice.
It does like a lot of the heavy lifting for us.
Nature is our fourth actress, for sure.
Well,
Fifth.
I see what you mean, but I actually disagree with you guys. I think that you guys put a little bit more into it than that. And the reason is because you worked in such confined settings on your films, but you kind of expand it with these very surreal sequences that use these like stark white and black backgrounds and these very convincing effects. And I know those aren't natural settings, and those shots are just as impressive and beautiful in their own way, and they're pretty convincing. So how do you achieve that kind of like surreal look that you have in the more
That's cool.
Yeah, thank you for disagreeing with that previous
So
statement. That's
lovingly.
super nice. Go
I'm going to
ahead.
step in because John's so modest. I'll say a lot of this. John's an artist. He's a painter, and he just knocks those psychedelic kind of things out of the park. He's just really great with color, and he's super imaginative. And so I agree with you. Since I'm not editing them, I can agree with you that I think a lot of the sequences in The Deeper You Dig and Hellbender that are kind of trippy and are beautiful. And I think that's all John's imagination and skill.
Well, you've mentioned that you often try 3 different ideas when you each have opposing ideas on set, and then you see which one works best in editing. How often would you say that you did that you have opposing ideas like that?
That's also a great question.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot. I don't think we have opposing ideas a lot. And usually it's a specific thing. Usually it's about, I think, about story. Like what do you think?
I'd say maybe 10-15% of the time, and usually it comes down to, well, you do it your way, and then I'm going to do it my way, and then Zelda, you do it your way. Like we had a disagreement yesterday about something because John and Zelda thought we should do this one performance scene in this new film a certain way, and I said, well, it's super important for me that my character grabs her arm that's fallen off from you and shows it, that the arm just doesn't disappear. And I'm like, and part of it is the fact that it's my character, so I'm thinking a lot about what my character would do, because I get to know my character inside and out through the course of doing her for a year. And another, so I'm like, that was something where John and Zelda wanted to do something, and I said, well, I'm going to do it my way too.
Yeah, and that's what we've learned to do, is you don't debate very long. Mm-hmm. You'll have a quick debate, and if somebody's pretty stubborn about their viewpoint, you don't debate it, and you just say, great, we're going to shoot it both ways. And
in the editing, the best thing always.
Yeah, it always shows. It's so funny. You also learn that you're not as right as often as you think you are, because as soon as the cuts hit the editing bay, that's what tells you what's right. And you can hear whose idea it is because all the audio's playing over the clips. And so I would say we're all just equally right about the same amount of time. So it's really good that we are listening to each other and not standing around wasting time debating.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier was phantasm. And I actually had in my notes, The Deeper You Dig reminds me a lot of Phantasm and The Shining. I see a lot of influences go into that movie. Am I wrong? Or if not, what are your other influences as well?
Damn, The Shining's cool. I don't think you've ever heard that before.
I would love to hear The Shining also affected me. I saw The Shining after I saw Phantasm, only 6 months after. The two of them hit me when I was 12 years old. And they were both scarring movies. But for sure, The Tall Man is definitely in The Deeper You Dig. And it's referenced, quoted. The scene where I feed the snake to her is, you could just put quotes around it and say Phantasm. Because I said when we were filming it, I'm going to walk like the tall man into this scene. It's going to be awesome. And those movies, what's cool about those movies too is, or about Phantasm, is it bends reality. Like they have no fear about bending reality, and they give people like us permission because they succeeded at it, and they're it's a lovely movie. So we can bend reality. In The Deeper You Dig, we bend reality, and Hellbender, we bend reality, and we're going to bend reality in the next movie that we're doing. And yeah, definitely, Phantasm is the permission to do that.
To me, there's something unique and kind of special about a filmmaking family. You don't see that very often. So what are the biggest challenges of being a filmmaking family, and what's the most rewarding part of it?
I guess the most rewarding part is that you've done all this together. There's something so, wonderful about learning and struggling and working hard and then seeing what you've accomplished and then getting onto to a film festival. That's the best part. That's sort of like the cherry on the cake, that you've made something. Hopefully people want to see it. It gets into a festival. You get to travel to that festival together. You get to stay in a hotel, meet people, go to restaurants, and you just feel like life is the greatest thing in the world being a filmmaker. So that's the reward. That's my favorite part.
For me, the answer is the same for both the failures and the successes about working with the family. Is when you succeed, you get to hug your family, and when you fail, you get to hug your family, and that's my answer.
Very cool.
So where did the idea for the Deeper You Dig come? And it is a pretty dark story.
Yeah.
My voice is terrible, so I'm gonna let John start that one.
Well, the quick answer to where The Deeper You Dig came in is that Zelda said, "Hey, Dad, we should make a ghost story where the ghost isn't the antagonist," and it was like, "Ooh, that's a great idea. Let's take the ghost story and flip it on its head." So off we kind of went with that idea. Another answer is that I love exploring guilt. Guilt is a real driver of horror, and I love the idea of this man just getting relentlessly overwhelmed with guilt. It's what I love about Poe. It's like the story about when the heart's down under the floorboards and it just keeps beating. As a kid, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that's so great. And so I think that for me, those are my answers of where The Deeper You Dig really was born.
And I've got two answers. The first is, I think a lot of the time I think we're really pretty happy people, and we're happy family and everything. I think we love to make horror because it kind of serves a purpose like nightmares. Like we do not want our kid to be abducted and killed in a bathtub,
No.
But in a way, when you make these films about your greatest fears, there's something kind of healthy about, exorcising those things within a safe playing field of a film. And I would say another thing too is what was my other thought about that, about The Deeper You Dig? Turning it on. Oh yeah, that can I say like a spoiler? You think?
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
It's pretty fucking warped. To consider. We loved considering. Well, how far can a mother's love go?
Yeah.
For her kid, can she really love her kid when she's actually in the body of her killer? And we just were so like infatuated with that concept.
Yeah.
That question.
Okay.
So John, tell us how difficult it was to film a scene of killing a character played by your daughter. Did you have to go really to a dark headspace, or was it all pretend?
We laughed the whole time. Zelda and I did that together late one night, and her and I just had a ball, and it was very funny. She's so fun to work with. So it was just, to be honest, there was no dark headspace. It was perfect. The house, I was working on this old house. I was redoing an old house, so it was dirty and dusty, and this tub was sitting there. The reason we decided to kill her in the tub was because it was this old stained, nasty tub in this old stained, nasty bathroom. Everything was perfect. And, Zelda was way up for it. I think she had a lot of the directing in that night, and then we brought the footage home to Toby, and Toby was like, "No fucking way! That is like too horrible." And we were like, "What? No way! It's great! It's so great!" And she's like, "No, it's not great." And it's like, it's not great at all, and people aren't going to like it because we're killing like a kid. And I'm like, yeah, but it's Zelda. It's not that big a deal. We're killing Zelda. And she was like, yeah, but it's not Zelda to the rest of the world. It's like we got to be careful about killing this kid. And Zelda was like, Mom, come on. We spent like the last 4 hours up until midnight shooting me getting killed. We're using it. And so eventually we won the argument and even went back and filmed a little more because we were like, we feel like it could even get a little more dark. So
Yeah, it was
Wow.
so hard for me to take off my mom hat. I was like, oh, this is too much. Not just the fact that I'm her mom, but any mom. I was like, oh my God. But then I realized, you know what? You just have to make the revenge that much better.
yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything that you left out then that you felt might have went too far for the audience, or how far are you willing to go in terms of your subject matter?
Boy, we're going pretty far in our new film.
Okay.
We have there's things that we don't like. We're not big on like
Think of
sexual violence, and we like. I think it's fun to do. I think any violence. I think. Okay. On the festival circuit, we see a lot of movies, and one of the things that we've really gotten turned on by is body violence and really organic, real violence, because it is artistic. It is really cool. The horror crowd loves it when it's done well. And so as like artists, like it's fun. That's what we're doing on our next movies. We're really trying to deliver really wonderful, honest body horror. And so right now and we look at it and we're like, oh my God, like that is so awful looking, but beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it's art. We're doing art. It's like, it's not real. It's like we're here to entertain people, but also send a message. So we just feel that the balance of the terror or the horror, there has to be a balance. There has to be the other side of the seesaw. So if we're gonna we have a horrible amputation in our latest movie, but there's a reason for it, and it's very, very important. And so it's not like it's not, what do you call it, horror porn, or it's not violence porn or whatever it is. It's like it's violence for a reason that's going to pay off in the story and pay off in the character. So I think that's our rule. It's like when I cut my head off in The Deeper You Dig, there is a reason for it. Now there wasn't when I came up with the idea because I just wanted to cut my head off with a sawzall. And Toby was like, that's fine. Like, we'll cut your head off, or you can cut your own head off with a sawzall. But we really need to understand, well, what's it a metaphor for? Why are you doing that? And that made it fun, and it balanced it out. And it is important in the end. And that does give a scene legs.
That brings me to your makeup and visual effects. They're done by Trey and Samantha Lindsay.
Yes.
So who are they? How did you meet them, and how did you get involved with people who are on par with your style?
Trey's the nicest human in the world, so I hope everyone out there listening one day gets to meet him.
Yep.
He's a wonderful artist.
And a yes man.
And a yes man, and a great collaborator, and his daughter Sam is a wonderful girl. And we started working with him with The Deeper You Dig. And I just asked a mutual friend, hey, do you know anybody who can do horror effects? Because we need to up our game. And he was like, oh, try this guy, Trey Lindsay. He's really nice. And we sent him a little clip and said, what could you do anything with that? And when he sent it back, we were like, oh my God, this guy's like just wonderful. Beyond his art, he's a wonderful human. And that this reverts back to one of your other questions, is what would you say to filmmakers? Work with people who say yes and are nice. And that's Trey Lindsay, just a terrific human being.
You're also part of a band, a Hellbender band. So what came first, the filmmaking or the music?
Music came first.
Music.
Yep, music came first. many, many years of playing in bands that traveled around and slept on couches and played in stinky ass clubs, and it was beautiful. And one of the nice things about filmmaking is you get to integrate all different kinds of art: painting, music, acting, writing. It's just this beautiful round, you know, it's great. So, and then actually Hellbender happened because of our band. Like, we have a band called Hellbender, and our movie Hellbender really grew out of that. So, you know.
Yeah, we'd gone out to California to shoot a music video of a song, and it's just all these themes kept coming into, or visual themes were coming to play, you know, the crooked trees and dark figures and power struggle, you know, structures. So we kind of realized, oh, let's just keep going with this Hellbender concept,
Yeah.
and really explore what is that.
Okay. In the movie Hellbender, and this is what I want to know, it's just Hellbenders are described as a cross between a witch, a demon, and an apex predator. You're kind of sort of building your own mythology. So when you put the band together, did you already have this concept in mind, or did you define what a Hellbender is after you started working on the movie?
Yeah, after we started working on the movie, Toby really designed what a Hellbender was. That's her monster and her myths, and it was fun to watch her come up with that.
Okay.
So I wanted to know a little bit how you transitioned into Hellbender. So first of all, tell us about the journey of Deeper You Dig, how it went from festivals to distribution, and how was it different for Hellbender? Was it a lot different?
Very similar in some ways. So both the Deep You Dig and Hellbender had their world premieres at Fantasia, John's t-shirt, which we just love that festival in Montreal. With the Deep You Dig, we submitted it on our own, and we just got great response. It went to Fantasia, and then Fright Fest in London, and then Fantastic Fest in Austin, and Sitges in Spain, and it was, and Telluride Horror Show, and a bunch of others, and it was just like, oh my God, we loved every single one. And then we found through the festivals, some distributors and sales companies reached out to us. So we went with MPI there as a management team that then, through Dark Sky Films, they distributed it. With with Hellbender, we wanted to try something kind of different. Well, the first person we showed it to was Mitch Davis, who runs Fantasia. And we thought, we don't know if we have shit here with Hellbender. Let's send it to Mitch. And he loved it. And then, of course, we premiered with them. And then pretty early on, even before the festival, we reached out this time to a sales company called Yellow Veil Pictures, because we loved the films on their roster. We loved their publicist, who we'd met and who worked at Fantasia, and we thought maybe this is going to be a really cool home for us. And we just couldn't be more ecstatic that we did that. They introduced the film to Shudder. Right away, Shudder took it on, and it just was like we were off to the races. Went to the same festivals and then some others, but this time it was all through Yellow Veil, who just have been phenomenal, along with Shudder.
Well, when I was watching her, and I know that Hellbenders are not really witches, but like that's heavily influenced by that, I sort of came to the conclusion that my favorite type of horror villain is a witch while I was watching your movie. And it has a really interesting approach to the depiction of witchcraft and the ideas behind the occult and the mixtures you put in there, like huckleberries and tears, ferns, fungus, and blood, spider webs and ivy. Where did you come up with a lot of these combinations? Are they something that you made up, or is this based on some sort of pre-existing mythology that you had to do research for?
Oh, we just made it up.
Oh,
I think
okay.
we had so much fun doing that. Basically, we just put our minds into the mind of a little kid. Kids have incredible imagination, and they're simple with their rules, you know, and they use a lot of just very simple logic. And so if what is sticky? What would help you climb a tree? Well, ivy clings to trees. You know, squirrels climb trees. And so, you know, that's where things like, you know, and if you mix tears with, I know I'm getting it wrong, but ivy, then you can climb trees like squirrels. It just makes sense. And mushrooms release spores, and hellbenders are kind of self-replicating, you know, creatures. They're kind of like mushrooms. So they should be, if you mix some of your blood in it, which ties in with your matrilineal, your lineage, you can, and on the wind, you can smell something in the wind, you know, so it was so much fun.
Another thing is that we're campers. We love hiking. We're outside a lot, and we love hidden magic. The way the river flows, the colorful plants that are all around you. There's all these keys that humans don't have that could open up so much magic in nature. And we thought it'd be really fun if that magic was built into the DNA of Hellbenders so that they knew how to open up that magic.
I personally love Hellbender's music. I'm a big fan of yours, and now I turned my whole family onto your music. Hellbender existed before the movie, but did you write any of the music, even some of the slower stuff? Did you write it specifically for the movie, or was it all pre-existing?
Yes, we definitely wrote a bunch of the songs for the movie, and that was one of the nice things. So when the fact that we don't have a budget, sometimes we can't necessarily film things that we want to film, and so one of the ways that we can inform the audience about the story that's happening is through the music and in the lyrics. And so yes, absolutely, we wrote a bunch of songs and the lyrics to help inform the audience about what's going on here. And thank you, because we love doing the music, and it's so nice that people are enjoying the music also. We're working really hard on our next film's music, and the next time we talk, hopefully we'll be able to talk after our next movie, but the answer will be we're writing all the music for the movie. Like,
Cool.
we are really sitting here thinking about what our sound is for our next movie. Like, it's like very singular. We want a very singular sound. Like, one of the things about Hellbender is it's lots of different kinds of music. It's like kind of punk rock. There's some acoustic stuff. There's some kind of dreamy, ethereal stuff. This next one has a real specific sound.
You're going to release an vinyl album of Hellbender pretty soon, aren't you?
It's out.
Oh, it's out. Okay.
Well, it was the pre-order was out. Yep.
Unfortunately, it got, well, not unfortunately, unfortunately, it got sold out. And yes, we're with this company that's been really nice to us, and shipped to shore, and the album has a lot of extras, like a lot of songs that we wrote for the film hit the floor, because you can't have, we wrote like 45 minutes of music for it, so we put everything on that album that we wrote for the movie.
John, Toby said that you were responsible for a lot of the visuals, especially the hallucinatory sequences in Hellbender. So what inspired those visuals? Is it just pure art and just the way the images fit together, or was there something that informed those images as you went along?
Well, I definitely wanted to capture the trippy quality of tripping, because I think that these guys are, these Hellbenders they're extrasensory. I wanted to have an extrasensory world. Now, the only extrasensory world that I know was back in the day when I did do trippy stuff, and so in a way, like, I really like when she touches the book and her hand kind of starts to melt and twirl. I mean, I'm not here to say everybody should go off tripping, but I tried to make those visuals like an acid trip or like a mushroom trip, like extra colorful, over like life with a little extra juice in it. And it was really fun to do. There was a lot of experimentation in getting the visuals right, a lot of failures, a lot of back and forth. It took a long time, but I really loved that process. It was really fun. So it means a lot to me that you enjoyed it, because it was important to me.
One sequence in Hellbender, I think it's, I forgot what it is that you're eating, and when you and your daughter are tripping together,
Maggots.
start vomiting on each other. Yeah, maggots, and you start vomiting on each other. I had experience with psychedelics.
Yeah.
It was like a weird thing, because it reminded me of a dark psychedelic trip but your characters seem to be really enjoying it and having fun, and it kind of like draws you into the dark nature where you could see that you're a mother trying very hard to put on the surface and trying very hard to raise your daughter to be good, but you see a little bit of your nature come out, even the way you vomit at each other or you call each other bitch and the things like that. Where did the vomiting idea come from to vomit on each other? Because that really caught me off guard.
Oh man, well, here goes. So I'm always trying to fit in, like I love menstruation.
Oh my God.
As a teen, John's like, oh man. And so for me, it just was like a little inside thing where I figured if hellbenders are created because one has to consume the other, then essentially the stomach is like a womb. The stomach is like a uterus. So for me, it just was a little kind of really trippy thing where I was like, well, then they would bleed out of their mouths as well, you know? So there you go.
But there was also something else about it. And,
That it was fun.
yeah, that it was
wanted-
fun for sure. But no, we had another idea. Like they were supposed to eat the maggots and really trip hard.
Okay.
And you had a whole bunch of ideas about what you had 3 things that they were going to do. And I was like, we can't film that. Like, we just don't have the money to film that. We don't have the technology to film that. And
Like levitate.
yeah, they were going to levitate. They were going to do a whole bunch of stuff. There was going to be all this stuff that we just couldn't do. And the vomiting of the blood captured kind of what you're talking about. Like humans, when they have a bad trip, and they're throwing up or whatever, it's not fun. It's the exact opposite. But these hellbenders, they thrive. Their power comes from fear. So like a bad trip is built on, like for a human being, a bad trip is built on fear. It's built on, like, that's why it spirals out of control, because your fears get power. But for a hellbender, that fear is wonderful. And so it was kind of, I remember we talked a lot about that blood. It became an important way. Also, Toby's answer is the high answer, but the low answer is that it was a good way for us to show these kind of wicked beings having a good wicked time.
Yeah, and Zelda's character, Izzy, vomits the first. You know, she vomits first, so it's kind of like she's showing off, and it's like, oh, I got you here, babe.
And it was great
You
because
can't show off to like the master.
Yep.
But really, the mom doesn't realize Zelda's the master.
That's my really quick. That's my favorite sequence in the movie. That's
Cool.
crap. It took me so off guard when I first saw it.
yay.
I really
mean,
scared
great.
the shit out of Zelda because I put little rice in the blood and I didn't tell her. And so she was like, oh my God, what is this crunchy thing?
Yeah.
Well, I love the contrast and also the similarities in the visuals between when the mother touches the book and then when the daughter touches the book. They take on a darker connotation right there. But another thing about the visuals, the visuals in the makeup in the music performances, who designed that makeup and what inspired that makeup?
Another great question. Group effort
Yeah.
on who designed it.
There were, you know, subliminal, or there were meanings behind them for
Yeah.
sure.
Zelda has a tear in her eyes in the first one. Toby's got X's, so it's kind of just a prophecy.
Ah,
And then as they move along, they become more tribal.
Yeah, next she has a star in her eye, Zelda, and she's like, I want to play out, so she has stars in her eyes. And my character has like a bandit thing, you know, she won't let her. She's like her jailer. And then the third one, Zelda just looks like tarantula face, like claws, you know, and teeth on her face. And my character in that one basically was red and an arrow going down, so she's like, you know,
She's fucked.
yeah.
But it's great because I love and then the music for that one is super duper tribal, which is kind of like they are in their tribe now. Toby's basically on the downturn of being the leader of the tribe, and Zelda's on the upturn, and she's wearing a crown too. Mm-hmm. So all those things are fun symbolism that people can have fun with. You know, it's not just like we didn't just randomly throw shit on each other's face, you know.
I actually wanted to ask you, Toby, about your acting process, because I really like your performance in the movie, the way that you put on a very concerned. You seem like a very concerned mother, and particularly, I'm remembering the part where you turn John into dust and you disintegrate him. And you look like you don't want to do that. Like you're actually like fighting like your nature. Is there a particular headspace that you had to put yourself in to play this role?
Well, first of all, thank you for that nice compliment. I really understood the mother. It didn't take much for me to understand the impetus for the mother to try to keep her daughter from her legacy, even though she must know that it's just, inevitable. Because I think any mother would want to protect their kid. And this mother's been through it all. She's done the eating and the killing. And I think I think she wants to protect her kid from that loneliness. It's a life that's violent and lonely. But what's so sad about it is she's neglecting. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
She's neglecting her her who she is. So it didn't take it wasn't hard to go there. What was weirdest was to in the end, when Zelda's character kind of gets very powerful and is kind of, we're so nice to each other, Zelda and I. We have a really easygoing relationship. So it was a little strange to kind of be scolding, and it was strange for her to be a little, mean to me. But no, and I enjoy like the dramatic stuff, like the end. I really love that stuff. When we kind of go head to head.
Really quick, you wanted to go darker for the end, didn't you, originally?
Yes. We had some really fun thoughts about the end where they would totally battle it out. And originally we wanted their jaws to unhinge like snakes. There was going to be much more of like a serpent kind of theme with the Hellbenders. And so originally we thought, the mother will actually try to kill her kid and eat her, and her jaw will open up, but really then it would be Zelda who would overpower her mom and eat her.
And we also originally were going to have them, their power, instead of being in the fear of blood, which I'm really glad we finally settled on, it was going to be in babies. They were going to eat babies. And we filmed Zelda eating a baby early on, and it was like,
it looked like shit.
It was like so bad, and it was like, oh my god, this is gonna be the dumbest movie ever. We got to come up with a new plan about like where they find their power, and ultimately it really helped the story.
Okay.
Well, I have to say that I disagree with Joe Bob on that ending. Joe Bob thought that you went too light on the ending. I thought it was very dark and very emotional. I mean, the mother lost her battle to save the daughter from being evil, and the roles were kind of reversed in a very sad and depressing kind of dark way. Don't you agree?
We love the ending, and we also love if people want to not like it too. But we love the ending, and I also think the ending is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Like far more brutal than I'm gonna eat the mother. I mean, that to me was like the kind of the easy ending, and trust we had that one in the hat, but we kicked it out of the hat because it was like, you know what, that's not good enough.
And yeah, as it is, they've kind of like, in a way, the daughter said, come on, mom, like, don't deny who you are. There you are. You're so beautiful. The monster in you is so beautiful. So to think about they're being close, like maybe even going on tour together and like killing together, it's kind of beautiful, because one day the day is going to come when she does devour her mom, and it's time for mom to go.
I like it. It was fun though. It was interesting. I knew it was coming. It was fun. It was, first of all, that whole crew is a wonderful crew over there at the drive-in, and he was super nice to us, and Darcy was wonderful too. Yeah, but it was so funny. I could tell it was coming when he was talking. I was like, all right, I know that he's going to slay us on something here.
Well, it really spoke to me as a parent. You try so hard to keep your kids from doing any, going wild or doing anything horrible or going down a bad path. So it really spoke to me in that way.
Good.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
it's pretty bleak as it is, the way that it ends. And I think what like the most shocking or the disturbing thing is when she's eating her former friend, and like she's feeding off of her fear, and you see her body kind of like only like the upper half, like the torso up, and then she's eating.
Oh yeah.
That was cool. I also like that rhyme that Zelda says where she tells the story of the wolf. Did you come up with that, Toby, or is that like a
That was just a collaboration. I think it was
okay?
John's idea to make the poem, and
It was a drive. We were living in a trailer driving around the Northwest at the time. I remember, and the three of us really just banged out ideas until that we kind of like once we got on. Oh, this should be a poem and a nightmare. We
Okay.
just kept banging off ideas until we finally got it narrowed down, and then it was really fun to film and we had hooked up with our older daughter, so it was fun to cut her in half, and it was just like it was kind of like everything really came together for that. And thank you, because I personally, that's my favorite scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, her
Yeah.
line delivery of that is impeccable.
And speaking of some of those lines, there's some lines in here that make this movie really special for me. One's like break my heart and I'll devour you, or I went hunting for a laugh, but it was a ghost. Who came up with lines like that? I loved them.
Toby came up with the first one because I remember when she came up with it,
and you really loved the laugh.
yeah, I loved. We talked about that. It was kind of like, what's that mean? And it's like it means a lot, and so we kept it in there because it does mean a lot. You know, it's funny though. Like part of like the real answer to that question is who comes up with the lines. Is sometimes we don't know who came up with the lines because a lot of stuff also does happen on set, or somebody will say something and it's like immediately the bones are boiled down and that's the bone. Do you know? It's like, so a lot of these things just kind of happen. They definitely don't happen in so much in script writing. A lot of the best stuff happens because we're all hanging out together.
I mean, the genesis of this movie, if you could tell us a little bit about it, Toby. I already know the story, but for the audience, about your mother on her deathbed and how that kind of inspired the genesis of this story.
Yeah, sure. So my mom was in the Deep You Dig. She plays Mrs. Minsky, who's the old woman
Oh,
that Ivy, the psychic, is bilking of her money, pretending to have her talk to her dead husband. That's my wonderful mom. The day before the Deep You Dig premiered at Fantasia, my mom died. And 2 weeks earlier, not even 2 weeks earlier, she told me that, and we knew she was going to die, that my dad was not my biological dad, that I had been donor conceived. So I'm 50 years old. I've never had a clue, and I learned that my dad, who had already passed away, was not my biological dad, and it was pretty crazy. So it got our wheels spinning. Like, well, Jesus, what if my dad was some like nutcase, like a serial killer, And then that escalated to, what if my dad was the devil? Let's make a movie about like the devil. Maybe I'll be the devil and Zelda will be the devil's kid. Or maybe, the devil, we don't see the devil and Zelda is the devil's kid. We realized we weren't quite ready to tackle the devil, but it sort of evolved into this, consideration of nature versus nurture. Because I found all these siblings. I'm the eldest of 8 siblings. And so it was really fun to explore, with these 2 hellbenders, one who's denying her nature and the other one's to embrace it.
okay. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of Hereditary, because I feel like some of the story could almost function as a metaphor of fear of passing down certain traits to your child or inheriting the worst parts of yourself that you don't want your child to inherit. And I kind of see like a parallel with like a Hereditary, if you've seen that.
Absolutely. I mean, we loved talking about that when we made the movie, which is also, I won't speak for everybody, but most of us find out a lot of secrets as we get older. And we realize how much those secrets inform who we actually are. And that's what this movie is about. This girl, this young hellbender, doesn't know jack. until she's 18 years old. And then the truth hits her like the truth hit Toby that day in the hospital. It just comes out of the blue, out of the sky, you know, and that's what was fun about this young kid, finding out that she has amazing but brutal power.
Okay.
Toby, there was something I was curious about on the scene where you kill John's character. Did you see something when you tasted his blood? Was he a bad man? And how did you achieve that effect of him rising in the air and disintegrating?
Oh, awesome question. No one has ever even really talked about that scene. She's tasting the fear in his blood. And not only does she like it, it's sort of like, I'll just take one little sip. You know, nobody will know. Not only that, there's a little of that, but it's also the fear that really gives her the power to obliterate him.
Mm-hmm. And how was that effect achieved? Because it was pretty convincing, the disintegration into
Shudder's actually putting out a DVD with the some kind of like bloopers, and you'll see the blooper. It's done with me hanging from a Kubota.
Mm-hmm.
I had something like a kind of like a belt, a harness tied around really close to all my fun stuff, and Toby's never had driven a Kubota before, and she's the one who needed to operate the bucket, and I was tied to the bucket. And she yanked me around like a rag doll, and it was a kind of funny day. I lost a couple octaves at the time, but
Fortunately, we already had kids.
yeah, we already had our kids, so all was cool with that. But what was cool was me and Trey talked a lot about it. And it's basically a real effect of me hanging there, and then he takes out the rope that sticks up behind me. We put the harness inside of my clothes and cut a hole in my shirt where the cable was holding me. And Toby, like I said, finally when she figured out how to drop the bucket, she actually did drop me the right way instead of yanking me up the other way. And then we moved the Kubota, kept the camera the same, and dumped a whole bucket full of ash from the fireplace. And so then Trey, because he's super good at this stuff, it's a composite of all real things. There's nothing digital in it. So it's like, that's why it looks, I think, very, very real, because it all is real. It's just a composite of two different actions. The camera stays the same.
I mean, that makes sense because it doesn't look like CGI. It looks like somebody's actually just disintegrating into dust.
Yeah, he did a great job with it. I mean, he told me what I needed to do. He told me the plates that I needed to send him, and me and Toby put those plates together, and he did a great job of making it look super real.
Okay.
Looks amazing. It looks seamless.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell him that. I mean, he worked hard on it, and he's such a smart person, and for us, that was a very big effect. Like, it was like, Che, how are we going to make me disappear in a cloud of dust? And he thought about it, and that's what he came up with, and it just really is beautiful.
What about the key through the hand?
That's one of his favorites because it's so simple. And the way he does that is that's also exactly the same concept. It's a composite where I filmed Toby's hand against the door or Zelda's hand against the door. And then what he did was he filmed a key pushing through a green piece of paper. And then he like basically composites the key that's through the green paper right over the hand, and he puts just a small amount of, like, if you notice, it's not a big bloody effect. The key kind of really pops through the skin pretty quick and pretty seamlessly, and that way he didn't have to do a lot of digital extras. It's really just a quick gash that seals up also pretty quick. So that's just a key going through green paper and then composited over a hand.
Wow.
Nice. That's very cool.
Really neat. Like, it's really neat. He's really happy with it because it was something that was quite simple. And now we're using that same trick with some more brutal kind of effects in our next movie, because that one just looked so good. We were like, great, now let's really do something really horrific with the same science.
There's another scene I have to ask you about. The one where Zelda eats the worm and she lets out with that horribly blood curdling scream, which part is her, and as far as the sound goes, and was that really her screaming like that, and how did you get her to that place? Because that's one of the most frightening screams I've ever seen on film.
That is great. I'm so glad. She was really embarrassed because those other kids were around. And so I was like, all right, Zelda, you're going to eat this is the scene where you swallow the worm and you let out a fucking hellbender scream. And she's like, Dad, I really don't want to scream in front of everybody. Could we just put this in later? And I was like, okay, I guess. I mean, do you really think you're going to be able to look like you're screaming? And she was like, yeah, I promise. And so she went like this.
Really?
And then it's 4 different tracks. Later on, I got her to really scream. And then it's a lion. I got a lion and I sped it up.
Mm.
And I think there might be an eagle in there and another animal. It's 3 animals and her screaming all together.
Okay.
Okay, I knew there was something else about that made it given an extra layer of creepiness.
Oh, good. It's so fun. It was really fun to do. That one also took a while. I had Zelda. Zelda's very hard to please with a lot of edits, and that one took a while to please her. And it was good that it took a while, because if it turned you on, then it was a success.
Cool.
What was the how long did it take you to finish the movie? I mean, post-production, after everything was all filmed.
We don't do post-production. We kind of everything is all in one big crazy ass ball. And how long did it take us to make the movie?
Basically a year.
Yeah. So from beginning to end, a year. Because we shoot, edit, everything kind of is always a million different things are going on. And so at the end, there's not a lot of post-production because it was I color correct as I go. There's no, we are the ones who do everything, so we don't send it to anybody or anything like that.
Oh, that's very good.
So you mentioned that you didn't have the budget to have the unhinged jaws and all that, and the baby eating. Do you ever look back and wish you had had the budgets for the baby eating stuff? And do you ever do that on your projects? Do you ever look back on them and wish you had more on them?
Not me. Do you?
No. And it's funny, with Hellbender, we were going to have a much bigger production, and then COVID hit, and we were so I don't want to say we're grateful for COVID, but we were grateful that we realized, that was probably bigger, more than we could chew. And so that kind of kept us within our very humble, roots. And we were grateful for that.
And this kind of reverts back to one of your earlier questions, which is, it's always really nice to not have a lot of money, because you kind of have to think through things and you have to do things that are in your wheelhouse. You don't get caught, out of your wheelhouse.
What would you say was the biggest challenge with Hellbender? What was the hardest part of the production?
Some of the effects.
Okay.
Trey and I had a lot of, sometimes the effects were because we definitely, all of us are always trying to improve, and that includes Trey. He's always trying to improve. He reads the reviews. He's very conscious of his art, and so we really had to fight through. Sometimes Trey would keep sending us things, and we just have to. He worked really hard on some stuff. I would say that, and we worked really hard on our end on some of the effects. I think that was the hardest part. Do you think so?
Yeah, I guess so. Because it really was kind of a pleasure to make.
Yeah, and even that's a pleasure to make. But I mean, those were the things that probably had the most conversations and the most back and forth were some of the effects.
Because of COVID, and Lulu, our older girl, plays Amber, we weren't getting too close to her because she taught kids, and this was before vaccines were around. So that was a little challenging, not to do, to kind of keep a little distance most of the time.
You said that Lulu was a bit of a wanderer, right? She likes to see the world. Do you think that traveling at a young age and making movies is kind of what inspired her to do that?
She says it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in South Korea right now.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Wow.
If you don't mind me asking, what is your next project going to be like? If you can give a synopsis or tell us a little bit about what you have coming up.
Sure.
Absolutely.
It's called Where the Devil Roams, and
Mm.
it's about a family on the carnival circuit in Depression era America,
Oh,
and their side act is murder. And we like to say it's a cross between Bonnie and Clyde, Frankenstein, and the Grapes of Wrath.
okay. So
Wow.
is this
Where
like
the
a,
Devil
a
Roams.
bigger production because it's a period piece?
Yes.
Okay.
It is a bigger production, but still an Addams Family film.
Totally how we normally work.
Yeah, not much has changed. We've got a little more access to a little more money, and we've had a lot of fun building sets,
Mm.
getting cool. Again, we're just the ones building sets. Lulu was home with her boyfriend for a while, so we did have three of us able to work together building sets. We got great costumes.
John builds most of the sets. He's amazing and super innovative and inventive with how he recycles the sets.
But we're taking our time, and it's so much fun. I was just saying to somebody today, I hope the audience has as much fun watching this as we're having making it. It's really fun. We're paying attention to the details, and it's got some exceptional violence that, like we were saying before, is really well balanced with some great drama. I think that's my opinion. I mean, it's our movie, so it's hard to beat.
And honestly, there are some days when John and I are like, are we making something? I mean, we always say that with all of our films. Are we making something good here? But this one, really, I think we're trying to stretch our muscles and try new things, which can feel risky and a little frightening at times. But I think it's important for us to grow as filmmakers and hope, and we really are loving this one, even though it feels like its own unique beast.
Yeah,
And
it's also
we hope people like it.
it's funny because the deeper you dig and Hellbender are both in present day. They're present. It's you go to town, it looks like town. You drive in the car, it looks like a regular car. What's fun about this is we're really like having fun with the cinematography because it's the 1930s. So everything's an imaginary piece. Everything, you have to bring your imagination to it. You can't let the background be the background. You have to think about it all the time. And it's really fun and it's really beautiful. And the other thing that we learned from both Hellbender and The Deeper You Dig is that we love the cinematography of shooting in the winter.
Mm.
So this is all shot in the fall and the winter in the Catskills. And so it looks brutal and magnificent because the Catskills are just exceptional.
And there's a lot of music in it as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a bigger cast on this one, or is it another scaled down one with?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's great. We've just had so much luck with wonderful actors and actresses, and it's not like we went and had a big casting and went to Hollywood and got a bunch of Hollywood actors, but we've really thought about each character. And some people are just real people. Some people are actors. It depends on what the part needs, and it's been a real joy.
Nice.
One of the things to us is, have you guys seen the movie
Nightmare Alley.
Nightmare Alley?
I haven't seen that one yet. Guillermo del Toro, yeah.
Right.
Not yet. Not
Okay,
yet.
so we watched it. Like we've been working on our movie for a little while, and then everyone was like, "Oh, Nightmare Alley! It's set in the '30s, and it's amazing." And so we went and watched it, and in the first 10 minutes, we're like, "Oh my God! Like maybe we're fools from look at the production on this movie. It's so amazing, you know." And then Toby's like, "Yeah, but I mean, we're making a dirty ass movie, so it's like the underbelly of what they made." And so that kind of was a freeing thing. It's like, yeah, our movie's filled with smoke and dirt and stink, and that is what's fun about it. Like the people got rotten teeth and their acts are terrible, and it's just fun.
Well, from what I understand, so the next one is like a little bit bigger scale, and it seems like you're pushing a little bit further, and you have a bigger cast. Was it easier to get, I guess, more people involved now that you've made more of a name for yourselves and within the horror community, especially with the festival circuit, and with Hellbender being very popular on Shudder and going on Joe Bob?
Yeah, a lot of things are getting easier for sure. That's with the people are yes is the answer. Things are getting much easier.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question for myself now, because James and I are both filmmakers as well. And my first feature film, we just got a distribution deal for it, so it's not out yet. And we're going into pre-production on my next feature film, and it's going to have a much bigger budget. So what's your advice for us going into this one? Because we're little freaked out right now.
Very.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, first of all, wait, we want to watch the movie that's just about to come out. What's that one called?
It's
It's
called
called Pay Up.
Pick Up?
Pay Up.
Pay Up.
Hey, awesome, fun. Is it set in modern times? Tell us a little.
Yeah, it's set in modern times. It's a kind of a guy who's down on his luck, and he gets a new girlfriend, so he ends up getting mixed up with a drug dealer to get some extra money, and to pay back the drug dealer, he gets mixed up with a cult.
Oh, great! I love it already. It
Cool.
sounds really great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well, congratulations.
yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it sounds like you've already figured out the exact same thing that we have figured out, which is that it's that distribution that's really helpful. You know, like when we got on, Shutter has opened up our eyes to like, oh my gosh, wow, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's changed. It's just let us into a new room, you
Mhm.
know, of creativity, of connections. Like on your next movie, you got a bigger budget, and you're just about to shoot. What kind of camera are you guys using?
We're actually going to shoot on a red camera. We did a horror variety show in 2019,
Oh, great.
and we teamed up with Gargoyle Media. So those guys have a lot of equipment and stuff like that. So we're using their red camera on it.
And do you guys have is there a set schedule, or do you have an open-ended schedule?
We're gonna
I
have
know.
a set schedule.
Yeah,
What was that?
Yeah.
yeah.
Set schedule.
Set schedule. How long is the schedule?
About 3 weeks, right, Michael?
Yeah.
About 3 weeks.
Awesome.
So we're not going to be able to play with it as long. I have a question for you as far as distribution goes, because for the next one, and this is just me dreaming big, I actually think that this project, especially with the script that Michael wrote, I would like to get this distributed by Shudder. That would be the ideal for me, because that's such a perfect place for horror audiences. What is it like to kind of navigate the festival circuit in dealing with different distribution companies, like bigger ones like Shudder?
Well, Yellow Veil Pictures, who introduced the film to Shudder, and they're our sales team for the film. They're also, sorry, I got it. Their festival.
While she's the answer is a sales manager, a sales team like Yellow Veil that was amazing to us. They did change our trajectory and our lives, because they have immediate access to all sorts of distributors, all sorts of production companies, everything. They can get it to somebody's desk in a minute. And that's really helpful, because we knew immediately, like our deal with Shudder happened before our second festival. Like we were done, like, and that was really cool. However, with The Deeper You Dig, we did a whole year of festivals before we signed our distribution deal.
Okay.
And so they both were great. But one of them was definitely more lucrative and quicker.
Okay.
And so, I mean, if you can, you send it to various sales agents and say, hey, this is our new movie that we're going to be sending out to festivals. Are you interested in helping us navigate the sales of it? I mean, sometimes you can even find those people before you even shoot a lick, you know? Mm-hmm. But all that stuff, it's interesting. Like each movie, I think you have to make that decision because all those things also bring stresses too. Like the fact that the Deeper You Dig we just did alone was kind of unstressful because we were just floating like all on our own. We had nobody to answer to. So the more people that you pile onto your team, the more people that basically start to dictate how you operate. And that can be good, but it can also, you know.
I would say there are pros and cons. Like the pros with Yellow Veil was they're actually festival agents. Some films that they don't represent for sales, they just represent for festivals because they're super connected. Like one of the guys, Justin Timms, he's one of the he runs Brooklyn Horror, you know, in the Night Stream. He's super involved with these great festivals. So they have these wonderful connections, and they're also great guys.
Yeah.
Now once Shudder was on board, they had to get permission for certain festivals after a certain period of time. So at some point, Shudder would start saying no to digital. It has to be only, you know, in theater. So there were certain caveats once, you know, when Shudder was on board. And then the other thing I would say too is there were things that I loved about when we didn't have someone doing the festivals for us, because I'm very meticulous with my festival communications. I'm just super communicative. I have all my pictures in a row. I know like what I'm doing and what I present to festivals.
And the festivals appreciate it too. Fast email back and everything else.
So even when I had other people managing, I knew that I could do some things even better than they could. You know, and so it was still important for me to like make my own electronic press kit and make sure people knew they could send that out as well. Now, you know, once Shudder again was on board too, they would only allow one picture out. So for all of our festivals, we only had one picture, and people got so sick of it. Yeah. And they're like, can you send me another picture? And I'd have to say no, you know? So there are like pros and cons.
Okay.
Well, I really relate to you guys and your movies because we come from a long background of just guerrilla filmmaking, doing it all ourselves with no money. And that's why this is so scary, because this is the first time we're working with a real budget. And we're trying to get investors and a big cast involved, and we're stunt casting like a horror icon. So that's why it's really scary. So I love that I discovered your movies, so because they're such an inspiration for me.
Well, we'll have something to learn from you guys.
Yeah, you're blazing a trail here, so we can't wait to watch your movie and interview you about what we do next. Yeah. Oh my God, that sounds really fun, though.
I mean, I'm really excited to see your next film. When do you have an idea of when it might be released? I'm guessing sometime next year.
So we're almost done shooting everything, and I'm gonna imagine that we'll be done with it. Like, I really hope I'm done editing and I have like everything's just done by November. That's my hope. Toby probably doesn't believe that, but I
thought you were going to say September.
No,
and I was going to say November.
I'd say about November. This thing will be done, and probably what we'll do is we'll probably send it to Mitch Davis at Fantasia and say, is this worth a crap? and then hopefully he's gonna be like, yeah, so that's our hope. But I think having somebody who's in touch with the industry, like Mitch isn't like he's Mitch Davis, and his team at Fantasia are wonderful, so he does know a lot. But he's also honest, and he's our friend, and he's someone who we can send it to, and we really respect him. And he'll tell us what's up, and that'll dictate kind of how we move from there. So we're gonna be just as terrified as you guys, like, because if Mitch says, I love you guys, but I don't think this is your best, that's going to be painful and scary, because then we're going to be like, holy shit, what do we do? So, but that's why we're just fighting like hell to make it our best.
Well, I think you guys, what I like about you is I feel that you're going to be inspiring to a lot of like the horror community out there. And I even like what Joe Bob said when he hosted your movie. A lot of filmmakers get really scared and don't know what to do and feel like they need a bigger budget and they need to do this. And your team is proof that you don't need to do it. You're self-sufficient. You did it all yourself. Like, I think the deeper you dig was made for less than 10,000. Am I correct?
Yeah, pretty
That's
tiny.
That was like 11, yeah.
regardless, that's incredible because it's not really reflected in the quality of it and the look
No.
of everything. So you guys are
Oh.
inspiring, I think, to a lot of aspiring filmmakers, and you kind of show that there is another way to do it outside of the typical Hollywood system, I would say.
Thank
Well,
you.
we love those movies. That's why we love festivals. We love the other people that are making $7,000 movies, $20,000 movies, whatever. It's just so great to see what people can do, and it's also great to see without money how you have to stretch your imagination.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to thank you both so much for coming on the show. It's an honor to speak to you, and I hope you tell Zelda congratulations for us, and congratulations on graduating and also her modeling contract.
Yeah,
Wow.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
This is-
Congrats to your kid too.
Can't wait to watch both your movies,
Yeah.
and it's so generous of you guys to interview us and talk with us tonight.
Yeah, and we'll keep our eye out for Pay Up. And
Yeah.
good luck to you with this next one.
And we hope to have you back on when your next film comes out as well.
We'd love that. Yep.
Thank you both so much. Love your movies. It was really a pleasure
Thanks.
to talk to you both.
Thank you, James. Thank
Peace,
you,
you
Mike.
guys.
Take care.
Bye.